Commissioner. Well, after 2 years of hard work, we have now reached the approval of the first binding law on artificial intelligence to reduce risks, to combat discrimination, to give transparency, to make sure that equality and freedom are sustained, and at the same time supporting innovation and competitiveness. Thanks to us, the European Parliament, after hard negotiations, practices that are unacceptable in Europe will be banned. For instance, the recognition of emotions at the workplace or at the place of study, or to define the religious or ethnic relevance of biometric on the basis of biometric systems. The workers must also always be informed. We must be told of the use of artificial intelligence at the workplace. We will be protecting the rights of citizens and workers. And these are some of the important examples of what we have achieved. In the final text, we have also been able to reduce the risk in sensitive areas, for instance, the use in medical activities. We need to verify the conformity on the reliability of the data, digital security. So we put obstacles to artificial intelligence, which tries to discriminate white women or people of other ethnic origins. These are data that we are familiar with, and we wanted to take a law that can have an effect here in this area. We also want to make sure that we want to create an incentive for the use of artificial intelligence, and people can use systems, but with a maximum guarantee. And thanks to the work of the European Parliament, we've also worked on the basis of transparencies. So we must make sure that big fakes are no longer used. They are recognized by the devices by warfare marking, which is a kind of architecture which is invisible. We will also put an end to use of those issues protected by copyright, because we understand the economic value of creativeness, and this is a right which needs to be protected within the context of artificial intelligence. There is a lot that remains to be done in order to approve this. We are at the moment preparing an AI office. This is be an office within Europe, and institutions and companies need to be helped for voluntary compliance in order to apply these rules before they are fully compulsory. It'll be very gradual, and it will put at the very center, for instance, the development of what we wanted in the Parliament. That is to verify fundamental rights, verify on impact. And this is fundamental so that the users of artificial intelligence can also play their role to reduce risks. Allow me to thank all of us for this very important task, which is putting Europe at the very forefront of this particular type of legislation. And we will have to work especially on artificial intelligence at the workplace. So we have done this work together with the co-rapporteurs, our colleague Tudorache and all the other colleagues and shadow rapporteurs in the political groups. The Parliament's team has been united when negotiating in the light of our views, that is to truly put the human being at the very center of the development of artificial intelligence. Thank you very much.
Benifai. Next speaker is Rapporteur Dragos Tudorache.
Thank you, dear colleagues. It is customary to begin with thanks. I will actually continue where my colleague left it. And I want to say, first of all, thank you, Commissioner Breton, and thank you to the Commission as such for the foresight of putting forward this proposal when no one else around the world was actually looking at this option. I also want to thank the shadow rapporteurs for putting the incredible energy and effort that was required from you and your teams to draft those over 3,000 amendments to streamline them into a coherent mandate and then negotiate that with the Council. I would thank the Council if they were here, but they're not. And I want to specifically thank Brando Benifei for being such a great colleague and co-rapporteur. So this is it, colleagues. We delivered. The EU delivered. No ifs, no buts, no later. These are the rules. We have forever attached to the concept of artificial intelligence the fundamental values that form the basis of our societies. And with that alone, the AI Act has nudged the future of AI in a human-centric direction, in a direction where humans are in control of the technology and where the technology, helps us leverage new discoveries, economic growth, societal progress, and unlock human potential. Much work lies ahead that goes beyond the AI Act itself. AI will push us to rethink the social contract resting at the heart of our democracies, along with our education models, our labour markets, the way we conduct warfare. All this to say that the AI Act is not the end of a journey, but rather the starting point for a new model of governance built around technology. Going back to the Act itself, we must now focus our political energy in turning it from the law in the books to the reality on the ground. First, implementation. The rules we have passed in this mandate to govern the digital domain, not just the AI Act, are truly historical, pioneering. But making them all work in harmony with the desired effect and turning Europe into the digital powerhouse of the future will be the test of our lifetime. Second, we need to work with others. The EU now has an AI office to govern the most powerful AI models. The US and the UK have established equivalent structures, and many more will follow suit. It is imperative to connect these initiatives into a strategic triangle and then into a network. And that will allow us to stay on top of any unforeseen developments in AI that might require a coordinated response. Third, we need to play on the global scene in accordance with our weight, not just by making the rules, but also by exporting them. We need to put our entire diplomatic and political clout in promoting the European model of AI governance. This is a strategic priority for the next mandate, alongside reducing our strategic dependencies and increase our resilience, because the future is AI-fueled, and we must continue to shape it. One final thought. We haven't yet witnessed the full power of AI. The existing capabilities have already surpassed anything we could have imagined a decade ago, at speeds we have never thought possible, and this will continue exponentially. For lack of a better term, artificial general intelligence, or AGI, is something we need to prepare for. Any AI possessing an intelligence that is superior to that of a human being will open up infinite possibilities, but at the same time will raise never-before-encountered ethical, moral, and yes, even existential questions. We have in the AI Act a first answer to those questions, but we must be prepared to cater our governance for quantum leaps that we know AI could do. I'll conclude not as a politician, but as a parent. This regulation makes me feel more confident about the future of my children, and I'm humbled to have played a part in shaping it together with you, all those present in this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rapporteur Tudorache. And the next speaker is Ms. Eva Maidel for the Committee on Industry, Research and Energy. Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues, Commissioner. We've arrived to the week that we are going to have the final vote of the first ever law on artificial intelligence. The way I see it is that we are laying out a common European vision for the future of this technology, one where AI is more democratic and safe, but also, I would hope so, more competitive. That is, if it's done right. In a way, we close one chapter, but the story continues. And what I believe now that it's important is that we focus on three things. First of all, to provide legal certainty to all stakeholders, including companies. Second of all, to play an active role in ongoing global efforts through the G7 process, OECD, and the UN. And thirdly, to prioritize AI excellence through concrete commitments and investments. I stand before you because I do believe that in Europe we are more than just a referee. I believe we are a continent of innovators, of doers, of dreamers, of achievers. And now it's time for us to walk that talk when it comes particularly to promoting AI excellence in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, colleague. Next speaker is Axel Voss. You have the floor.
President, Commissioner, colleagues, the legislation that we have before us is complex, it's complicated, and I think for a leading AI nation it would be important. The atmosphere outside the EU bubble is not particularly good, so we're missing some added value in terms of innovation, and we are not really leading the pack in the EU. So we believe that the EPP that the AI law is only sensible if we take further measures and add points to ensure that this is a success. Apart from the technical harmonization of standards, we need a flexible approach to all of these problems which may arise, and we shouldn't believe, and the rapporteur said this, that our work is just going to end here with this legislation. I think it's only just starting. We need to respond more quickly than we usually do and adapt to problems and new developments. We need to avoid legal uncertainty due to a lack of clear wording in the text. We need to clarify the AI office and have guidelines as quickly as possible. We need to determine where there is overlap with other legislation and minimize that. And clarify, we need an interpretation of the regulations for the entire European Union, a single, a uniform interpretation. And we need a concept for the sandboxes so that we allow certain sandboxes, specific sandboxes for certain sectors. We need to ensure that we have adaptation to the GDPR in terms of personal data, and SMEs need to be provided with extreme assistance in order to overcome the challenges. And with regard to the AI office, we need to ensure it has the right talent. That is also essential. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd now like to give the floor to the Commissioner, Thierry Breton. You have the floor, sir.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, President, ladies and gentlemen, honourable members of the European Parliament. And I'm also turning to the audience. There's a lot of people up in the audience gallery, and I see a lot of young people. And I believe that this is inspiring for us and inspiring for you to be here today and to attend this particular debate, which somehow closes an historic cycle, as was already said by the two rapporteurs that I'd like to greet. Dear Brando, dear Dragos, yes, it is an historic debate which is being held here and has been held for several months to lead to tomorrow's vote, a vote which will make it possible for us, as has already been said by the rapporteurs, to develop the first regulation on artificial intelligence in the world, which is a balanced text which is there to protect us from any excesses that may occur to the negligent use of artificial intelligence, but also to promote innovation. On the 8th of December last, and it feels almost like it was yesterday, Dragos and Brando, we spent 38 hours together. And I'll tell the audience, this is the longest negotiation that was ever held within the framework of the trialogues in the history of our European institutions. So this obviously clearly indicates the subject was very complex, and it was necessary to take time to harmonise the position of the European Parliament, legitimate views of the Parliament, and Council, and I'd like to welcome the work that was done by the Spanish minister, Carmen Artigas, during the Spanish presidency, and we reached an historic compromise. It is balanced, and it will resist the passing of time. Allow me to focus on 4 aspects particularly. Together, we managed to find the fair balance for risk management and promotion of innovation. Allow me to remind you that it is because of risk that we are regulating. This approach, based on risks, bans in Europe the use of artificial intelligence, which violates fundamental rights and values. And it is also fixing rules in high-risk cases, in the case of health issues, for instance, and also to promote innovation with no barriers, no obstacles for low-risk use. And that is obviously the largest number of cases. Secondly, we also developed a balanced, restrictive framework for the artificial intelligence models for general use. And this is an initiative that was taken by the European Parliament, by the rapporteurs, by the shadow rapporteurs. And I'd like to thank you for your commitment. This is legislation on artificial intelligence without measures of large artificial intelligence systems for general use would not have been efficient. So we've focused on 2-level approach: transparency for all models of artificial intelligence for general use, and then stricter needs for more powerful models which could have a potential systemic impact on our single market in the European Union. And this way, what we've managed to avoid is excessive load on the innovators and more transparency, as was already said, for many SMEs, which have always been at the heart of our concerns. Thirdly, we have a solid framework for transparency for the generation of content. Think about manipulated images on the web. Those texts generated by artificial intelligence and published to inform the public as public information have been generated artificially, and we need to indicate that this is so. What about deepfake? Deepfake, artificially generated, must be clearly indicated as being developed by artificial intelligence. And then we are also talking about a legal framework, law enforcement, and this makes AI Act very different from all the other issues that exist in other countries, because it's a tough job to actually reach this type of agreement, and it leads to surveillance of market at national level. And it has also been said by the rapporteurs, it leads to a new office, a European office for artificial intelligence, which will be set up in the Commission within my services. We've already started recruitment, and we have also set up a pact on artificial intelligence to make sure that hopefully tomorrow we will be voting in favor of this particular resolution. 350 organizations are working on this. And the main provisions for this artificial intelligence. So these measures will contribute to protect elections, many elections that will be taking place this year. But regulation cannot be the only thing that we do in order to strengthen leadership. In January, we approved a package in order to get the necessary ingredients for the development of artificial intelligence, the data, No data, no artificial intelligence. The data sets are necessary. The power of calculations, these need to be very powerful. But we use this, and this is the last point, on the basis of algorithms. And that is the object of our engineers, of our scientists. And I know that they have a very good reputation in Europe. Europe already has 3 supercalculators, and 2 new ones will be developed. They will be in the top 5. Apart from these supercalculators on the net, we shall also be building AI factories, where we will have supercalculators focusing on data centers and services to support startups, so that they can benefit from this infrastructure to develop their innovations. Ladies and gentlemen, honourable members, tomorrow's vote will conclude 5 years of hard work on this particular act. We've had discussions, we've had exchanges of view, negotiations, debates, interaction with the lobbies, all those who wanted to speak. We have been listening to them. But from where we stand today, the European Parliament, the Council and the Commission, we have shouldered our responsibilities, and these responsibilities are translated into the text which you will be approving tomorrow by a large majority tomorrow, I hope. Thank you.
Kommissar.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Well, the Commission has exceeded its speaking time, so I will be very generous with the speakers who come next. Ms. Solis-Perez.
Thank you, Commissioner and President. We are giving today birth to a law on AI which is unique. It looks at risks for people and talks about penalties for failing to comply. It's going to let us know if a text or photos have been artificially generated, and things like copyright can be better protected in this way. You, European citizens, can rest easy knowing that our fundamental rights are going to be protected more. But let's not just talk about the risks today. This does actually offer benefits, this technology, for our societies, and 80% of its uses are low risk. Protection of citizens' rights and promoting innovation need to be compatible in the European Union, because if we don't have that, we're going to drive innovators out of Europe. We've got a decent umbrella law. It's the beginning, as has been said. We need to approach it in a sector-by-sector way, in a flexible way, so that our companies can keep up with the developments of technology without deregulating. We need to seize the benefits of artificial intelligence and not be its slaves, because Europe can have a big lead as far as AI is concerned, and it's important for our competitiveness that we do.
Kollegin, als nächstes hat...
Thank you so much, Madam. Now I'd like to give the floor to the next speaker, Mrs. Romana Plum.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner, dear colleagues. Tomorrow's AI Act's adoption is pivotal for European policy making, as it guarantees our rights and fosters innovation. As TRAN Committee, we prioritize the safety and privacy of public transport users, as well as flexibility for small and medium enterprises. Therefore, we warmly welcome the establishment of stringent conditions for the further processing of personal data pertaining to the safety and resilience of transport systems and mobility within AI regulatory sandboxes. Moreover, granting priority access to regulatory sandboxes at minimal or proportionate cost for SMEs, and aiming to minimize the administrative burden and compliance cost, demonstrates our commitment to their success. The AI Act will facilitate artificial intelligence development in sectors that directly bolster our citizens' quality of life, especially in sectors like transport. I would like to congratulate the rapporteurs and all the shadows and Commission for this important legislative act. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Frau Kollegin.
Thank you so much, Madam. I'd now like to give the floor to Mrs. Clune.
Thank you to our rapporteurs and all the teams that brought us to this point. And the final adoption of the Artificial Intelligence Act today is an historic moment. This landmark legislation is a significant step forward in our commitment to responsible digital leadership and creating an ethical future for artificial intelligence in Europe. It provides a robust regulatory framework promoting trust and transparency in AI systems, establishing clear rules for deployment and for use and development. We are fostering accountability and responsibility across the sectors and along our value chains, and this ensures that AI technologies serve the best interests of our citizens. Crucially, this legislation upholds fundamental rights in the digital age with strong requirements for fairness, accountability and non-discrimination. We safeguard against unfair biases and injustices that may arise from unchecked AI systems. We can and we will unlock the potential of AI in healthcare, climate solutions and for economic productivity, but we also set clear guardrails, a ban on social scoring, discriminatory algorithms and manipulative techniques, and this ensures AI serves humanity and not the other way around. In addition, this Act will encourage innovation and competitiveness by providing legal certainty and a level playing field, and we create an environment that is conducive to breakthroughs in AI technology, positioning Europe in this way at the forefront of global innovation. So this is not the last post. The AI Act is the foundation, and now comes the crucial task of implementation and increasing international cooperation. And that is the establishment of the AI. So I welcome that, Commissioner, and we look forward to continuing our engagement with our international partners to ensure that we have a global response to artificial intelligence.
Vielen Dank, Frau Kollegin.
Thank you so much, Madam. I'd now like to give the floor to the next speaker, Mr. Vitanov.
Commissioner, 87% of the respondents to the Eurobarometer survey on digital rights and principles say that Europeans should be protected against risky or unethical application of digital technologies, including artificial intelligence. We are answering the demand of the people by introducing this legislation, the first comprehensive set of rules about AI systems. We have already said many things about the aspects of this agreement. The co-rapporteurs and the shadows, we all have briefed this room, our groups, our committees many times. This was one of the most publicly documented pieces of EU legislation. The amount of articles and posts on social media was extraordinary, and everyone seems to have a strong opinion of the outcome. And also one of the most lobbied legislation as well. The corporate interests were huge, and I'm proud to say that faced with this enormous pressure, the European Parliament held its ground and fought for its citizens. The EU legislative procedures are too opaque, too confusing, but we are the ones who speak directly, openly to citizens. Industry, NGOs. Our meetings are public and well documented. Our positions are clear, regardless of which group I'm talking about. It's the Council who is in depth with its citizens. If there are any shortcomings of this legislation, and there probably are, it's not because of the European Parliament didn't fight. We secured the ban of certain malicious AI systems. We introduced stricter safeguards on the use of RBI systems. We included foundation models in the scope of the regulation. We fought for more power to individuals when interacting with AI systems. So thank you to all of you colleagues, all the usual suspects here, and thank you to your teams. It's been an incredible journey, and I would like to give the remaining of my time to Svenja. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Next speaker is indeed our colleague Svenja Hahn.
Dear colleagues, thank you, co-negotiators. For 3,5 Jahren haben wir
3.5 years ago, we discussed here what the AI Act should look like. My requirements at the time, my yardstick, I said we need to strengthen citizens' rights and harmonize the single market. But let's see what we have. The definition of the AI is international, and we have the sandboxes, but there is bureaucracy and uncurrencies, which will be difficult, more easy to deal with by big tech than SMEs. The AI should not be a brake to innovation, and we weren't able to ensure a ban on biometric surveillance. With regard to identification and predictive policing, I was in favour of stronger rules. We improved the Commission proposal, but I would have liked to have more innovation and a stronger citizen protection. But this is not going to end here. For our democratic and economic future, we need to keep working and to ensure that governments don't misuse this for surveillance and that we have innovation here at home in Europe. Thank you.
Kollegin, als nächstes hat das Wort.
Thank you so much. I'd now like to give the floor to the next speaker, Ms. Sparentak.
Let's first state what this is. This vote is a revolutionary step. And from left to right, we bridged our differences, and there were some, and we fought together an unprecedented lobby against rules. And today, the EU is taking the lead worldwide with binding rules for artificial intelligence, including for ChatGPT. And with clear rules on how to design and use AI, we're putting people and society first. And I'm particularly proud that we already managed to learn from mistakes that were made with the use of AI before. We will make sure nobody is ever classified as a criminal or fraudster purely based on a calculation again. We will make sure people always get an answer to questions they have about certain decisions made by governments, instead of facing a computer that says no and leaving people empty-handed. And we will make sure a human is always in the loop, so your human rights are protected and you're not discriminated against. And I'm proud of the clear limits we put to unethical technologies, such as predictive policing, facial recognition in public space, and so-called sexuality recognition. And I would have wanted to go even further, with stronger bans, closing every loophole, binding environmental standards, and mandatory testing for all large language models and image generators, instead of only the largest ones. But my fight for this will continue. And let me use my last seconds to once again thank the amazing staff, and also from the Commission and the Council, that stayed with us for 38 hours, which was ridiculous, and it should not have been that long, but we did it, and thanks for your commitment to staying and keeping us sharp all night long. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, verehrte Frau Kollegin. Als nächstes hat das Wort.
Thank you so much. I'd now like to give the floor to our colleague Slotowski.
Szanowni Państwo, Panie Komisarzu, Panie Przewodniczący.
Ladies and gentlemen, Commissioner, Mr. President, AI is changing the world. Possibilities offered by AI are continually growing, and questions that it raises are growing too. And there are risks which we can't close our eyes to. We need criteria that are clear to look at the services provided by AI, but we also need to look at the question of forbidden uses, particularly when this technology is used by public institutions. During long hours of work on this, we've managed to get the ECR group's priorities built in, an exemption for R&D phases, for example, less red tape for SMEs, the reinforcement of the regulators' roles and protection of citizens' rights and their private life. The effectiveness of these rules will depend on the commitment of member states and the bodies whose task will be to apply them. We can't just regulate, we also need to educate, to invest and create innovation, and I do hope that legislation on AI won't stand in their way. Thank you.
Als nächstes hat das Wort.
Thank you so much. I'd now like to give the floor to colleague Lacapelle.
Mr. President, colleagues, Commissioner, for the first time, legislation is regulating this new environment, artificial intelligence. This legislation was necessary given the impact of artificial intelligence in all areas and the dangers that it brings with it. I'm thinking in particular of the spokesperson of Emmanuel Macron's party, Renew, which circulated an image of Marine Le Pen simulating her speaking in Russian and defaming her. group has contributed to this text with proposals such as reinforced control of artificial intelligence by humans, not machines, or the use of AI by the forces of law and order in order to protect victims with regard to the risks of terrorist attacks or pedophilic pornography. Also on preventing illegal immigrants crossing borders or the use of AI in order to promote universities. We still see major gaps in the text. We need to remain vigilant. We lost certain combats, but we need to win the AI battle in order to ensure we're not dominated by China and the United States and ensure that we foster our companies and our countries in the digital world of tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Next speaker, Ms. Konechka. Thank you so much, Commissioner. I would like to see that the next President of the European Commission is not a person who wants to be the very first person to have written history, whether this is good or bad regulations. But if it's again somebody like the present president, I would have hoped that the next European Parliament will not be forced to take a decision at all costs to satisfy this particular person. Fixing rules for artificial intelligence, we have the possibility of doing something positive, to ban biometrics for surveillance of citizens or use of this technology. The biometric surveillance is generating a lot of profits, and I don't believe that this kind of text is acceptable. It is better to send out that to check on citizens calls for putting health in danger. Thank you. Thank you so much.
This union has yet to prove that our commitment to the rule of law and separation of powers is robust enough to allow member states to use IA-powered biometric surveillance. Maybe not society will ever be advanced enough to be trusted with such power. All the exceptions introduced by the Council open the door to hardcore authoritarianism. Maybe it takes a Catalan to realize, but you have seen a member state, Spain, spy on us with a much weaker technology, Pegasus, with the indifference of the institutions of the EU. How can we believe that these exceptions are included in good faith? Populism and authoritarianism are on the rise. Western democracies are experiencing an unprecedented regression on human rights. And instead of fighting this malign wave with all our might, the European institutions get ready to allow the world's poly-state nightmare to become law. This is how democracy dies. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Frau Kollegin.
Thank you so much, Madam. Well, I'm closing Catch the Eye. We have too many speakers on our Catch the Eye list, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to be stricter because time is running out. Mr. Arias Echeverría.
Gracias, presidente, señor comisario.
Thank you, President. Commissioner, AI has come to stay. Digital services will have a huge part of it. We need to regulate this, and for the first time, the EU is a pioneer with this law. It's the first regulation on this revolutionary technology in the world. We went for a non-digital future back in 2000, and we are paying the price. So we need to correct, and we are trying to correct the mistakes of the past. But we shouldn't be naive. Regulating isn't enough. We're competing with the United States, among other countries in this area, a country without very much regulation at all when innovation comes round. So we need to keep fighting to get a place on the international stage. We need to support SMEs, cut red tape, which is strangling our companies, and make sure that we have an attractive ecosystem in Europe and avoid over-regulation and have public-private partnerships. And, of course, make it all citizen-centred. It needs to be based, of course, on the European way and on our basic values. We need to unlock the potential of the digital market and increase EU competitiveness. We can't leave this in the hands of the private sector because it's vital for our citizens.
Kollegin Schaldemose.
Thank you very much. AI can be both a friend and foe. We've seen good and bad examples. For example, a good example is an app to detect skin cancer. But on the downside, a chatbot which encourages people to self-harm. There need to be clear rules governing this. We cannot accept things which allow young people to harm themselves. We should also not allow everything to be processed by AI. You still need people, and you need rules governing this and instructions. So it's good that we are adopting this law. Thus we can monitor how we use AI. The path is set, the rules are clear, and we can develop and use AI. Ms. Melchior has the floor now.
It's not only artificial intelligence, it's also technology. Merci. I morgen, der stemmer vi om den første omfattende...
Tomorrow we'll be voting on the first act for artificial intelligence. I'm quite proud of this as Shadow Rapporteur of the Legal Affairs Committee. Together with the Commission, we've found an act which balances basic regulations, basic rights to protect citizens, and companies have the possibility to innovate and to grow. This is European success, and this is a European success story. And the Danish government has decided to take this type of legislation too. The press conference was held a few weeks ago, and Denmark is also going to be accepting this kind of sandbox on artificial intelligence, and it looks very much looks very much like our legal framework. That the government, well, they might not really know what's going on here, but maybe they've been looking over our shoulders over the last few years. In any case, this has to change. The member states, governments of the European unions, should not turn European success into their own success, and then they always point a finger at the European Union.
Lagodinsky.
Thank you very much, colleague. And I give the floor to Mr. Lagodinsky with a higher lectern.
Opportunity, but only if you are able to steer it. And you have to do it before it makes you obsolete. You have to steer it in a direction that benefits, not harms, our economy, our society, our humanity. This AI Act is our timely attempt to control the future developments before they control us. Yes, this law is weaker than the regulation that we as this Parliament have wished, but it is better, much better than no regulation at all, than an AI Wild West. And in many areas, this law is a pioneer work. Yes, we would have loved to see a complete ban on biometric facial recognition or a comprehensive prohibition of behavioral observation by AI. But the fact that indiscriminate mass surveillance is no more possible, that we have bans like emotion recognition vis-à-vis students and employees, that we introduced fundamental rights assessment, environmental obligations, regulation of foundational models, all this shows that Europe is a continent that feels the pulse of history, also in the digital age. What is next? Now we need investments and we need support of AI technology made in Europe. This is the next challenge. And yes, we are facing it. We are accepting it now. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Herr Kollege. Thank you, colleague. And I give the floor to colleague Sofo.
Questo regolamento europeo
This EU regulation on AI is unquestionably a first step to try to provide order and morality in something that's going to have a huge impact on people's lives. But up to now, the big multinationals have just forgotten about people's fundamental rights. It's vital that in Europe we have a societal model that doesn't have a kind of big brother underpinning it, and we don't forget about people's freedoms which are threatened by another element, the ideologicalization of algorithms. Google's image generator has been so overcome by woke elements that it's not able to do any kind of pictures of people who aren't white. And it's important that we look at this, that it's not something that could stay neutral. It's possible that it could be used by people who want to bring in dominant ideologies and totalitarian views. It's important we don't allow them into our society. We should fight against this with all our power. Thank you very much.
Thank you, colleague. I now give the floor to our colleague Cornelia Ernst. Artificial intelligence, it's like cursing and blessing. Some bless this and some curse it, as they also do with commandments. What is clear that this is only a grandiose thing if it serves everyone. So even those who are less influential, if we want to protect workers in the workplace, and that's a good thing, but if we have a prevention of facial recognition with a long list of exceptions, then we're not doing well, like the use of AI in migration and border work. AI needs clear limitations for implementation in order to ensure that we can really play a pioneering role. Thank you very much. And I'll give the floor to our colleague van den Kendelaren.
Commissaris, goedemiddag collega's.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Today is really a milestone for the regulation of artificial intelligence, because with this agreement we shoulder our responsibility in the Union, a responsibility of finding the very delicate balance between regulating and innovating, protecting individual citizens and investing in technological progress. This AI Act will be the framework for responsible and safe development of artificial intelligence, which over the next decades will certainly change our daily life. Think of employment, defense, agriculture, transport, health, etc. This AI Act has the potential to become a worldwide standard. So let us be very cautious with the implementation, and let us make sure that we can make this particular act to prevail. Users and suppliers and citizens need to all shoulder a joint responsibility.
Thank you very much, and I give the floor to our colleague, Mr. Garcia de Blanco.
The AI law is the triumph of European democracy in a complex process which has lasted for a long time and had to conciliate various ideological positions, and we managed it in the end, and we've come up with this unique piece of legislation, and there's a lot of good stuff in this legislation. First of all, it's safety and security for our citizens. It'll build their trust and confidence that their fundamental rights and values will be protected by this legislation. It's legislation which is innovation friendly, which will create areas which will be propitious to innovation. Also, we're creating the biggest area of legal certainty in the world. Any operator in the world will know precisely what kind of rules we've got and what impact their actions will have in 27 different states. And also we've got a guarantee for the future when it comes to reforming the labour market, how we're going to compete as Europeans in the world, not as 27 different countries with 27 different strategies. There are still challenges ahead of us, but today is a day to pat ourselves on the back.
Kollege. Thank you very much, honourable colleague. Now the floor to Vice President Dita Chernovtsova.
AI is the future. It will be the next industrial revolution as we use it to innovate and to make lives better. We only have to look to the fight against cancer to see the great benefits that AI can bring to our society. 61% of Europeans feel the same. We need AI innovation in Europe. We need to embrace this tool and not hold it back out of fear. There are risks, but there are risks with every innovation. In general, our lives are safer today than ever in the past, and I'm sure AI will make them safer tomorrow. The AI Act establishes the guardrails for AI development, but it does not and must not stand its path. It gives guidance and limits, but it does not and must not tie the hands of our companies. Europe must not miss this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, dear colleague. Colleagues, we've received a lot of requests for Catch the Eye, but we've foreseen only 5 minutes and we are running late. So I decided to pick 5 speakers from the different political groups. Every political group will only have 1 speaker, and each of them will have 1 minute. And we start with Maria da Graça Carvalho.
Mr. President, Commissioner, colleagues, the European regulation on artificial intelligence is something which is unique in the world. It's based on powerful moral principles and transparency. With this legislation, we can unlock the huge potential of AI with more confidence, but we need to create an ecosystem which will help us use it properly. At the moment, AI factories, as they're known, have the initiative. This means that supercomputers dealing with AI applications will be ruling the roost as far as the relevant powers are concerned. Let's hope that during the time we've got left in this Parliament that we'll approve another initiative. This is very significant to make certain that Europe is in the front line as artificial intelligence. Thank you, President.
Thank you very much. I give the floor for 1 minute to Juan Fernandez Lopez Aguilar. Thank you, Mr. President and Commissioner. With this AI law, the European Union is at the vanguard in the world and dealing with such a difficult subject such as the preventive attacks launched by big tech, establishing a risk assessment system with indiscriminate biological recognition or predictive policing. This is a violation of fundamental rights. We need to assess fundamental rights with transparency rules, preventing defects without properly accounting for those, or providing protection with regard to the use of generative intelligence without taking into account copyright, with a governance model with an office for artificial intelligence, which is the first step of an agency in order to take the necessary action. We will only then be able to make the necessary progress. Now I give the floor to our colleague Castaldo.
Grazie, caro Presidente.
Thank you so much, Honourable President, colleagues. With tomorrow's vote, we will be showing the world that we're protecting citizens, that we're promoting efficient standards at global level. Thanks to the approach based on risk and the intelligent measures such as sandbox, we leave space to innovation, and we're fighting we're striding forwards in this revolution. Look at the many steps we will be seeing progress in the area of rare diseases, medicine, agriculture, improving productivity and achieving green objectives. We will also be protecting ourselves from the more dangerous uses of artificial intelligence, which undermine the fundamental rights of the Union. For instance, protection of more vulnerable groups and a contrast to deep fake. We in Europe clearly show that we're prepared to focus on technological progress, but at the same time protecting European citizens with our value, with our freedom at the very core of human life. Thank you.
Thank you, colleague. Patrick Breyer now has the floor. Mr. President, Commissioner, imagine a Europe where someone is sought, but everyone is under surveillance everywhere with unreliable, intimidating technology. You're scanning our faces, and you can always be detained on the basis of confusion. Europe where any remarkable behavior is automatically notified to the police, or where in discussions with officials you are under surveillance and consider you're not telling the truth even if you are. Is that a nightmare? None of these technologies is prohibited by this AI law. The EU wants to surpass China technology, and also in terms of its politics. Instead of protecting it is only worsening the situation. So we say no to a life of constant surveillance and constant fear, which allows constant surveillance, or policies like those of Friedrich Merz. We say yes to a right to freedom in our private lives and diversity. For a future of freedom, we must fight. That is the right that we have. Thank you, colleague. The last speaker is Pereira for Catch the Eye.
Thank you, President. We agree that we need clearly to define the limits and uses of artificial intelligence, but the regulation we're talking about here doesn't do that. It actually legitimizes a series of practices, and there's a huge list of exceptions. There's no doubt that in our society where profit is the main driving force, we simply are opening the door to another way of exploiting workers and having huge impacts on the lives of ordinary people. People talking about the artificial intelligence and the way it can contribute to research in medicine, and it ought to be able to help democratic participation and workers' rights. But it needs to be accompanied with workers' rights measures built into it, particularly when it comes to reducing the working day, adjusting salaries, among other rights. We need to make certain that it doesn't move us backwards in societal terms at all.
Thank you very much, colleague. We will now hear back from our colleague Breton.
5 speakers, so you don't get the floor. Monsieur Breton. You want to make a point of order, so you have a point of order.
On behalf of those who sat here during the entire debate in the hope of catching the eye, and I want to say I'm not happy with the way you handled it. After Commissioner Breton spoke beyond his time, you encouraged members to speak longer than their time allotted. You said you were going to be lenient with him because you were lenient with the Commissioner. Now you decide at the end that you're only going to take 5, which in itself is disproportionate. Because if you take my group, the EPP, are 5 or 6 times bigger than the smaller group. So I think you really need to reflect on, number one, the way you deal with the debate, and secondly, the way you decide in the end how you're going to catch the eye. I'm not happy, and it's unfair to all of us who sat here for the entire debate, and we didn't know until the very end that you were not taking us. It happens too often, and we're getting sick of it. Thank you very much.
Ganz herzlichen Dank, Herr Kollege.
Thank you very much, colleague. Maybe by way of an explanation, after Commissioner overstepped his time, I gave the groups more time. Indeed, I said I would do that, but I also said we were running late, and we had 5 minutes for Catch the Eye. And it is the task of the President to decide how to distribute speaking time. And we had many colleagues who asked for the floor. I understand your dissatisfaction. I know that you have been here all the time, but so were the other colleagues. And we heard from 5 speakers during the Catch the Eye 5-minute slot on this item. Now, Commissioner Thierry Breton has the floor for 2 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et merci.
Thank you so much, honourable members, ladies and gentlemen, for this debate. I would also like to welcome the presence of my colleague Veresnova. We worked a lot on this, particularly within the framework of the negotiations, which I talked about a minute ago. Well, after the Data Act approval and the AI vote, tomorrow will be an important step to structure our digital area. The next step will be to put it into practice. As you know, I'm quite convinced that this AI office will have the talent to put the AI Act into practice and also to work at worldwide level in the area of artificial intelligence. And the national authorities will also play an important role in the AI board and the scientific panel. Now, the AI office will start its work immediately after the approval, taking into account that clarity and other between this particular act and other regulations will be very well adjusted. We will also set technical specifications to the AI, high-risk AI systems. Both in Europe, and Europe will be seen as a global standard setter. Allow me to underscore the importance of underlining that our support to innovation and startups should be done. I'm talking about the installation, experimentation, and the super European calculators and the AI factories. Our SMEs and innovators will be the best ambassadors to develop respectful systems which provide trust for citizens, for SMEs, and the world will be looking at us. Thank you. Thank you again. And I count on your support for this Artificial Intelligence Act to be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I now give the floor to the rapporteur, Brando Benifei.
Grazie, Presidente. Voglio ancora...
Thank you, President. Let me thank, first of all, Mr. Tudorache once again, and all the other colleagues, the shadows from the political groups, and also you, Mr. Commissioner, for the work that you carried out during the tricky negotiations you reminded us about. We had to deal with important things like the security of the more powerful models, something we had to bear in mind with the need to provide answers for our citizens, for our European companies. It's now important that we apply all of this, as many colleagues have said, but also it'll be important for Europe in the next few years to equip itself with the requisite instruments so it be competitive on the basis of our vision of the future of AI. It means completing the Europe of capital markets. It means working on joint investment in research, sharing computing power in our supercomputers. It's also important that member states actually do their job as well. I'm thinking about the Meloni government in Italy, which has mentioned various laws and committees over and over again, but there's actually very little in terms of cash provided for AI development, and other countries, I'm sure, are in a similar situation. We need powerful stimuli here because this is a big challenge, making Europe really going into the vanguard of AI development. You can only do that if we provide regulation, but also other measures are necessary too. And in coming phases, it's important we have money, but we've seen so far that when Europe is genuinely united, genuinely works together, it can actually harness the power of its own single integrated market better and provide a clear line and genuinely bring in the changes which we need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleague. And I finally give the floor to the rapporteur, Dragos Tudorakis.
Thanks, dear colleagues, for this debate. A debate that raised the points that have accompanied us during our work, during the negotiations for the past 3 years. Have we found the right balance between protection and innovation? Do we have the right safeguards for the citizens against the risks that technology can bring or against the potential abuses by governments or by bad actors? Have we secured this legislation enough for the future to cater for the incredible speed with which it evolves? All of these questions, I have one answer. The answer is yes, because of the work that this House has done. We introduced enablers for business and innovation. We introduced additional safeguards against indiscriminate massive surveillance. We introduced additional prohibitions and high risks on democracy, on elections, on migration, or border management. So I look forward to our vote tomorrow. Let's make history together. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, Herr Kollege. Die Aussprache.
Thank you, colleagues. This concludes the debate, and the vote will take place tomorrow. Now, the minutes of yesterday's meeting are available. Are there any objections? That is not the case. In that case, the minutes have been accepted, and this brings us to the next item on the agenda. Question time to the Commission. According to Article 137, I'd like to welcome Mrs. Jourova. Welcome to the Parliament. The question is, prepare